The seventh sermon, the Judicial Laws of God. Of the Judicial Laws of God. I am prosecuting the treatise of God's laws. I have now, lastly, to speak of that sort which are called the judicial laws. I will treat these, dearly beloved, as briefly as I can, so far as I am persuaded to be expedient for your edification. This treatise will not be unpleasant nor unprofitable to every zealous hearer, although it does specially belong to courts of law, where judgment is exercised. For the judicial laws were set out by God 1348 with wonderful faith and diligence by the ministry of his servant Moses, and God is not in the habit of revealing anything to mankind with such precise and exquisite diligence, unless it directly tends to mankind's great commodity. Now, although these judicial laws are very few in number, and not to be compared in multitude with the huge volumes of the laws and decrees of emperors, kings, and wisest sages, yet in their short breviary, they contain the chief points of judgment and justice, and in effect, almost as much as is contained in the books of the laws and constitutions of the emperors and civil lawyers. The good Lord would not by too long and burdensome a pack of laws be too burdenous and troublesome to his people. Nor was it needful to over-curiously stick upon every individual thought of ill-disposed persons. It is sufficient for all wise men, people, and nations, if everyone has as much law as is sufficient for the conservation of peace, civil honesty, and public tranquility, as all the Holy Scripture witnesses that the people of Israel had. Now, these judicial laws are the most ancient, and the very fountains of all other good laws which are to be found in almost the whole world. Moses was before all other lawgivers that were of name and authority. Among them, Mercurius Trismegistus and Rhadamanthus the Lycian are thought to be the eldest. The Egyptians called their Mercurius by the name of Thoth, who, as Lactantius affirms, slew Argus who had so many eyes, and upon that murder, fled into Egypt. Now Argus and Atlas lived about the time of Cecrops Diphys, and Cecrops is reported to have lived in the same time as Moses. Rhadamanthus also is supposed to have lived after the days of Joshua, Moses' servant and successor. But the most famous lawgivers, of the greatest and most ancient nations, followed long after the death of Moses, Draco and Solon among the Athenians, Minos with the Cretians, Charondas of the Tyrians, Thurians, Oreneus to the Argives, Lycurgus to the Lacedaemonians, Pythagoras to the Italians, Romulus and Numa to the Romans. Plato wrote of laws a little before the reign of Philip, king of Macedon, and father to Alexander the Great. And Cicero, Book 2. De Legibus, says, I see therefore that the opinion of the wisest sort was that law was neither invented by men's wits, nor was yet the decree or ordinance of people, but it was a certain eternal thing, ruling the whole world with discretion to command or forbid, to do or leave undone. So they said that the chief and highest law is the wisdom of God, which commands or forbids all things by reason. Upon which that law, which the gods have given to mankind, is rightly commended, for it is the reason and discretion of the wise which is able either to command or else forbid, and so forth. Therefore the judicial laws of God are commended to us, not so much for their antiquity, as for the authority which they have of God. Now, that we may plainly and distinctly discourse upon this matter, you have to mark that to judge is an action, and in this treatise, it is taken for an action done in the courts of judgment. For it signifies to take up and determine between matters which are at variance, or else upon hearing a cause, to give sentence or judgment. Finally, to judge signifies to deliver those who are in danger, to relieve the oppressed, to defend the afflicted, and to suppress mischievous offenders with punishment. Judgment, therefore, is not the sitting or meeting of judges in assizes or sessions. Rather, it is the very diligent discussing of causes, the giving of sentence according to right and equity by the laws of God, and also the assertion and defense by which the good are delivered, and punishment is executed upon ill-disposed and wicked offenders. The judges are the overseers of judgment and justice, I mean, those who justly, according to the laws, give sentence between those who are at discord, who defend and deliver the good, and punish and bridle the wicked. And so, the judicial laws are those which inform the judges how to determine about controversies and questions, how to judge justly, how to punish the wicked, and how to defend the good, so that peace, honesty, justice, and public tranquility may be among all men. This alone is the end and mark to which both the judge and all the judicial laws tend and are directed. For God, our good Lord and lawgiver, would have it go well with man, that we may live happily, civilly, and in tranquility. And therefore, in this treatise we do not exclude the care and defense of pure religion, but make it one of the especial points which the judicial laws look to. And now, as with the ceremonial laws, so also the judicial laws are added by God to the 10 Commandments, to expound and confirm them with. For the precepts of the 10 Commandments are the chief and principal precepts to which we must refer all laws, as to the eternal mind, or will of God. I do not think I need to stand and show you, dearly beloved, to what precepts of the 10 Commandments each separate judicial law is to be referred, for that is very plain and evident to everyone who takes but small pains to confer and lay them together. For the judicial laws that are set out against murder and injury pertain to this precept, you shall not murder. And whatever is spoken against adultery, fornication, and filthy lust, are added to the commandment, you shall not commit adultery. Likewise, whatever is said in the judicial laws against deceit, shifts, cozening, and usury, belong to the commandment, you shall not steal. Lastly, all the laws touching the bridling of heretics and suppressing apostates by force, are set down to make plain the first, second, third, and fourth commandments of the first tablet. For some laws may be applied to more precepts than just one of the 10 Commandments. But this is easy and plain to perceive by every man. Therefore, I will not stand any longer about it. Now, because the judicial laws first of all require judges, those, I mean, who should maintain and execute the laws, for laws without executors seem to be dead, and on the other side, they are alive under a just magistrate, who is called the living law for that reason. Therefore, above all other laws are placed those judicial laws which were given by God touching the magistrate or judges, with their office and election. We read thus about their election: Moses to the people, bring men of wisdom, and of understanding, and expert, according to your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. Deuteronomy 1:13. Again, I will make you rulers and judges to judge the people, according to your tribes, in all your cities which the Lord your God gives you. Deuteronomy 16:18. And yet again, more plainly, seek, says Jethro, being inspired from above, to Moses, out of all the people men of courage, and those who fear God, true men, hating covetousness, namely, those who hate to take money and bribes, and over the people make of them rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s, and let them judge the people at all seasons. If you do this, you shall both keep the ordinances of God, and the people in peace and safety. Exodus 18:21-23. To this belongs that which we read in the book of Numbers, where Moses prayed, saying, Let the God of the spirits of all flesh set a man over this congregation, who may go out and in before them, so that the congregation of the Lord are not like sheep without a shepherd. Numbers 27:16-23. In this, Moses has left us an example to imitate, in making our prayers to God for the election of our judges. For oftentimes our opinions or judgments about men utterly deceive us. But the God of spirits beholds the minds and hearts, and knows what everyone is in thoughts and inward meaning. He therefore must be sought to give and show to us, not hypocrites to be our judges, but men of truth and virtue. In the same place, Moses leads us the description of consecrating newly chosen judges, for they were set before the Lord, and hands were laid upon them, with prayers and supplications. Moreover, the office of judge is very briefly described by the Lord, yet in most effectual and absolute sentences, from the mouth of Moses, in these words: Hear the causes of your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother, and the stranger that is with him. You shall have no respect to any person in judgment, but hear the small and the great alike, and do not fear the face of any man, for the judgment is God's. Deuteronomy 1:16 and 17. Again, judge the people with just judgment. Do not bend in judgment. Have no respect of persons, nor take any bribes, for rewards blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert just causes. Judge with justice, that you may live, and possess the land which the Lord your God gives you. Deuteronomy 16:18 to 20. And again, do no unjust thing in judgment. Do not accept the face of the poor, nor fear the face of the mighty, but judge your neighbor justly. Leviticus 19:15. Again, you shall have nothing to do with a false report. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil, nor shall you speak in a matter of justice according to the majority, to pervert judgment. Exodus 23:1-3. That is, if you see an innocent condemned by the multitude, do not therefore condemn him because the multitude has condemned him, but judge justly, and do not commit evil because of the many voices of the multitude. You shall not esteem a poor man in his cause, nor shall you keep the poor from his right in his suit. Keep far from a false matter, and see that you do not slay the innocent and righteous. You shall not oppress the stranger, seeing that you yourselves were strangers in the land of Egypt. Exodus 23:7 and 9. And truly, when God had delivered the people from the tyranny of the kings of Egypt, he did not put them in subjection to kings again, nor burden them with the tributes which kings are prone to exact from their subjects. For he made them a commonweal, or an aristocracy, which was the most excellent kind of regiment, in which the choicest men in all the multitude were picked out to bear the sway, and to rule the rest. Yet, because he was not ignorant of his people's foolishness, and that being weary of their liberty, they would crave a king, which he afterward also dissuaded them from by his servant Samuel, he made laws for a king also, that the king might understand that he was to live under the laws, and to give judgment according to the laws. The discipline or institution of a king is thus expressed in the 17th chapter of Deuteronomy. When you have come into the land which the Lord your God gives you, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are about me, then you shall make him king over you, whom the Lord your God shall choose. One from among the midst of your brethren shall you make king over you, and you may not set a stranger over you, who is not of your brethren. But he shall not gather many horses for himself, nor bring the people back again into Egypt, to increase the number of horses that is, to get himself a strong troop of horsemen, for the Lord has said, henceforth you shall not go that way again. Also let him not take many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor let him gather too much silver and gold. And when he is set upon the seat of his kingdom, he shall write himself a copy of this law in a book, according to the copy of the book which the priests use, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, and to keep all the words of this law, and to do these ordinances. And let not his heart arise above his brethren, nor let him turn from the commandment, either to the right hand or to the left, that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, both he and his sons, in the midst of Israel. Deuteronomy 17:14-20. Thus much up to here about the magistrates, judges, and kings. Now I suppose that all things are contained in this institution of a king, which are most largely set out by other authors, touching the discipline and education of a prince. And by the way, this is especially to be noted, that kings are not set as lords and rulers over the word and laws of God, but they are, as subjects, to be judged by the word of God, as those who ought to rule and govern all things according to the rule of his word and commandment. And here I have to repeat to you some of the judicial laws. I do not mean all and every one, but those alone which are the chief and choicest to be noted. By these, you may consider of the rest, and plainly perceive that the people of Israel were not destitute of any law which was necessary and profitable for their good estate and welfare. I will recite them to you as briefly as possible, and in as natural and plain an order as I possibly can. There is extensive speech throughout the Scripture of the holy buildings, of not removing those things which were consecrated to the Lord, and finally, of maintaining and publishing true religion. Nor do I think it is greatly to the purpose to recite all the laws word by word, nor to make particular mention of all the commandments touching those matters. Truly, of the heathen, and overthrowing their temples and superstitious holy toys, this commandment is briefly given by the Lord himself. When the Lord your God has cast out many nations before you, you shall root them out, nor shall you make league with them, nor pity them, nor join affinity with them, because they will seduce your sons to serve strange gods, and then my fury will wax hot against you, and I destroy you. But you shall do this to them. You will destroy their altars, break their idols, 1364 cut down their groves, and burn their images with fire. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord your God has chosen you to be a peculiar people for himself. Deuteronomy 7:1-6. The same law is set down in the 23rd chapter of Exodus, and is again repeated in the 12th chapter of Deuteronomy. To this idolatry belong the laws that were published against idols and images. In the 19th chapter of Leviticus the Lord says, "Do not look back to idols, nor make molten gods. I am the Lord your God." Leviticus 19:4. Also in the 26th chapter, "You shall make no idols nor graven image, nor rear up any pillar, nor set you up any image of stone in your land, to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God." Leviticus 26:1. Again, in the 16th chapter of Deuteronomy, "You shall plant no grove of trees near the altar of the Lord your God, nor shall you set up any image which the Lord your God hates." Deuteronomy 16:21 and 22. There are also, beside these, many other laws to this end and purpose in every place through the entire volume of the Scriptures. Of handling and treating well the poor, widows, orphans, and strangers, the Lord gives this commandment. "You shall not afflict the widow, nor the fatherless. But if you go on to afflict them, without doubt they shall cry to me, and I will assuredly hear them, and will be angry with you, and will slay you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children be fatherless." Exodus 22:22-24. To this belongs a good part of the 15th chapter of Deuteronomy. In the 24th chapter, the Lord says, "Do not pervert the judgment of the stranger, of the fatherless, and of the widow. Remember that you were a stranger in the land of Egypt." Deuteronomy 24:17 and 18. About receiving and refusing witnesses, and their witness bearings in judgment, these few notes are given in the law. One witness shall not have force against a man, whatever his sin or offense may be, but in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word shall be established. If a false witness rises up against a man to accuse him of trespass, the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and if they find that the witness has borne false witness against his brother, then they shall do to him as he had thought to have done to his brother, so you shall put away evil from your midst. Now, for the oath which the judges have to exact, or for those who are at variance, or else the vow witnesses have to take, the Lord commands it to be done by calling to record his holy name, and that too is of none other, but his name alone. Deuteronomy 10, etc. Moreover, where Moses so often bids the judges in a hard and doubtful matter to take recourse to the high priest, that in effect is a kind of appeal to God himself, or to the oracle of God, for the declaration of it. This is seen in the 18th chapter of Exodus, and in the 1st and 17th chapters of Deuteronomy. There are exquisite precepts in the 18th chapter of Leviticus, as well as in other places of the books of Moses, about lawful wedlock, and against incestuous and unprofitable marriages, and also about the degrees of consanguinity and affinity. Truly, where there is not a lawful marriage, there is no matrimony. Therefore, the children that are born of it are counted bastards, nor is there any dowry or inheritance for them. The Lord in many places of his law charges parents to bring up their children honestly, and to instruct them in the fear of God. Among the rest he says, "The words which I command you this day you shall show to your children, and shall talk of them when you are at home in your house, and as you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the posts of your house, and upon your gates, etc." Deuteronomy 6:6-9. Again, for honoring, reverencing, and nourishing parents, there are some things set down in which the honor and duty to be given to parents is diligently commended to all sorts of people, not only in the moral law, but also in the judicial laws. I will speak of these when I come to treat parricide, under which title I comprehend the evil handling and naughty demeanor of men to their parents. Now, how great the authority of fathers over their children was, we may conjecture especially by the 21st chapter of Exodus, where it is permitted to the father in poverty to sell his daughter. Exodus 21:7. Again, in another place, leave is given to the father either to deny, or else to give, his deflowered daughter in marriage to the one who defiled her. Exodus 22:16 and 17. And again, it was in the father's power to break the vow which the child had made without his knowledge or consent. Numbers 30. But to disinherit the children, if the children had not deserved it, but some corrupt affection had blinded the parents, lay not in the power or will of the parents. That law which is published in the 21st chapter of Deuteronomy shows and forbids the father to place the second in the right of his eldest or first begotten son. Concerning coming to inheritance, and the succession of goods, or the lawful succession by kindred, there is a precise law in the 27th chapter of the book of Numbers. There the case of the daughters of Zelophehad is set down, who requested that their father's name should not be wiped out, but that their father's inheritance and name might be given to and still remain with them. On that occasion, the law was made that if the sons died, the heritage should be conveyed and given to the daughters, or at least to those who were nearest in affinity. And to this belongs the law of raising seed for the deceased brother, and almost the whole 36th chapter of the book of Numbers. On this law also hangs the right which comes by adoption. Furthermore, there are many profitable, honest, and wholesome laws about whoredoms, adulteries, and the ravishing whoredom of virgins. In the 23rd chapter of Deuteronomy it is said, "There shall be no whore from the daughters of Israel, nor whoremongers from the sons of Israel." Deuteronomy 23:17. And in the same place, he forbids bringing oblations which are the price from a harlot's hire. In Leviticus, this charge is given: do not set out your daughter for hire, to make her play the harlot, lest the land be defiled and filled with sin. Leviticus 19:29. Therefore, in the 22nd chapter of Deuteronomy, the maid that was deflowered, and yet feigned herself to still be a virgin, when she was given to a husband, was commanded to be stoned to death before the doors of her father's house, to the end that parents, being terrified by so grievous a thing, might be stirred up to look more warily to their children. In the 22nd chapter of Exodus this law is given: if a man entices a maid who is not betrothed, and lies with her, he shall endow her, and take her as his wife. There are most sharp laws against whoredoms and adulteries in Deuteronomy 22, for their adulterers are punished with death. The same punishment was appointed for anyone who ravished a virgin by violence. There are rules given in the 5th chapter of Numbers for suspicion and jealousy. Numbers 5:14-18. There are most severe and yet most just laws expressed against detestable, unlawful, and altogether devilish lusts, such as, against most filthy incest, Leviticus 20:12, abominable sodomy, Leviticus 20:13, horrible and unnatural bestiality. Leviticus 18:23. Those sins which God has cursed are not once worthy to be named among men, Leviticus 18th and 20th chapters. Divorce and separations were permitted by law in the 24th chapter of Deuteronomy, for no other reason than the hardness of the Jewish people's hearts, Matthew 19:8, and for avoiding some greater inconvenience, namely, lest perhaps any man poison, strangle, or otherwise kill his wife whom he hated, when he could rid his hands of her by no other means. And those who were divorced in that manner, might at their pleasure be married to others. Moreover, so that justice might be maintained, and every man might enjoy his own, there was a charge very diligently given in the law, for the division of things for the partition of the land of promise by equal portions, and for the particular possession of proper goods, that possessions might be given to every tribe by lot, and that no man should by any means do away with the possessions given to him. To this belongs what is spoken by Moses in the 32nd, 33rd, 34th chapters of the book of Numbers, and oftentimes in other places also. And yet, notwithstanding, this law was not at all prejudicial to traffic by exchange. For there were many and very upright laws published for buying and selling, for letting and hiring, for borrowing and lending, for usury and things left in custody. Whoever desires to see these places in the law, he has them in the 25th of Leviticus, in the 22nd of Exodus, in the 15th and 23rd chapters of Deuteronomy. And I suppose to this is to be referred the law which is given concerning pawns or pledges. If you have taken your neighbor's garment in pledge, you shall restore it to him again before the sun sets. For that is his only covering, that is, it is the garment with which he covers his flesh, and in which he sleeps. For it shall come to pass, that if he cries out to me, I will hear him, because I am merciful. Exodus 22:26 and 27. Again, you shall not take the nether or upper millstone in pledge, for he has pledged to you that on which he lives. Deuteronomy 24:6. The laws for things left in custody, or committed to the credit of another man, and for taking oaths, commands every man to make true restitution of the thing given to him to keep. But if it were to be stolen from the one to whom custody of it was committed, then the one that kept it ought to purge himself by an oath before a magistrate, to show that he did not consent to have the thing conveyed away. The same order is commanded to be observed in things that are borrowed, lost, or otherwise broken, as seen in the 22nd chapter of Exodus. And because it is manifest that no small part of the goods of the ancient Israelites consisted in the multitude of bondmen, the law of God therefore stays long upon the discourse about bondage and bondmen, and of their binding and manumission. Yet it diligently commands to handle bondmen mercifully, like men, and every 6th year to set them free from slavery. But if it happened that at the 6th year's end, any bondman desired to remain in his master's house, he was permitted to do so, on condition that his voluntary bondage was confirmed by the ceremony of emancipation. Namely, the bondman, being brought before the judges, should testify there, that he would serve in bondage voluntarily. Thereupon, the lobe of his ear was to be bored with an awl, and fastened to the door. Exodus 21:1-6. That was the sign or token of faith and obedience. For David, alluding to this, said that the Lord had bored through his ear, that is, by faith he had bound himself to obedience. Moreover, in these laws the Lord limited the time of bondmen's manumission, because the lords of bondmen should not use them over cruelly for their own gain and commodity's sake. All of this was fully set down in the 21st chapter of Exodus. We must also refer to that, the clemency that ought to be shown to servants, for in the 23rd chapter of Deuteronomy it is said, You shall not deliver to his master the servant which has escaped from his master to you, but let him dwell in any place to which he has fled. And yet, man-stealing is most sharply forbidden. Now, the offense called plagium, that is to say, man-stealing, is committed by whoever entices other men's bondmen to run from their masters, or whoever steals other men's servants by theft or robbery, either keeping them for themselves, or else selling them to others. This law is given against such things. Whoever steals a man, and sells him, if he is convicted of the crime, let him die the death. Exodus 21:16. The same law is repeated in the 24th chapter of Deuteronomy. Little is said about free men in the law, but those who were known to be harlots' children, whose fathers no man knew, were excluded from bearing office in the commonwealth. Also, foreigners, such as Ammonites and Moabites, were utterly barred from rule and authority in the Israelite commonweal, Deuteronomy 23. All deceit, cozening, robbery, shifting, and subtle crafts are flatly forbidden in the law, under the title of theft. For in the 19th chapter of Leviticus we read, "You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie one to another." And in the 19th chapter of Deuteronomy, "You shall not remove your neighbor's millstone." In the 22nd chapter of Exodus, the Lord punishes theft with 4 or 5-fold restitution. Whoever did not perform this was sold and brought into extreme bondage. But if the stolen thing was found with the thief, and recovered again, then the stealer restored to the owner double the value of what was stolen. To this law belonged whatever was spoken concerning sacrilege, stealing cattle, robbing the common treasury, and carrying away other men's bondslaves, which I said something about a little earlier. And to this pertains that excellent law which says, "You shall not deny or keep back the wages of a hired servant who is poor and needy, whether he is of your brethren, or of the strangers within your land. You shall give him his hire the same day, and do it before the sun goes down, because he is needy and sustains his life with it, lest he cry out against you to the Lord, and it is sin to you." Deuteronomy 24:14 and 15. Concerning doing and receiving damage, and making full restitution for the harm that is done, there are many constitutions in the law of the Lord. If any man, says the law, digs a well, and does not cause it to be covered, so that another man's ox or sheep falls into it, then let the one who owns the well take for himself the beast that perished, and pay the worth of the beast to its owner. Exodus 21:33 and 34. The like law is made in the 21st chapter of Exodus, touching an ox that pushes with his horns. The 22nd chapter gives the law of restitution, in giving like for like if either one man's pasture is eaten up by another man's cattle, or if one man hurts another man's corn or vineyard. For the law commands him to restore other pasturings, other corn ground, and other vineyards, not from the worst, but from the best, to the one that had the damage done to him. Likewise, if any man had set thorns on fire, and by his negligence had allowed it to catch hold on corn either standing in the field upright, or stacked up in mows at home, then the one by whose negligence the fire began, made amends for the loss that the other received. The same law is again repeated in the 24th chapter of Leviticus. In the 22nd chapter of Deuteronomy, many things are expressed that must be referred to this title of theft. Of this sort is the law that bids us to bring back the ox that goes astray, and to restore the things that are found to the one that lost them, to keep our buildings in good repair, so that our brethren are not harmed by misfortune in the fall of them. And like these also, is the law which says, "You shall have a place outside the camp to go to, and bear a paddle stick at your waist, with which as you sit, you shall dig a hole to hide your ordure, or cover your excrements in." Deuteronomy 23:12 and 13. And in effect, a like matter is handled in the civil law. For necessity requires that in commonwealths there should be laws concerning drafts, and the order of buildings, so that no man should trouble or annoy his neighbors around him by his excrements or by building new houses. To this place we may also add the laws that were made concerning separating lepers from those who were clean, lest the contagious disease infect the healthy little by little. The laws about lepers and leprosy are set down at large in the 13th and 14th chapters of Leviticus. In the law, the Lord commanded that just weights and just measures be kept, where he says, "You shall not have in your bag two manner of weights, a great and a small. Nor shall you have in your house different measures, a great and a small. But you shall have a right and just weight, and you shall have a perfect and just measure, that your days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord your God gives you. For all who do such things, and all who deal unrightly, are an abomination to the Lord your God." This law is given in the 25th chapter of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 25:13-16, and repeated in the 19th chapter of Leviticus. There are many laws set down in the book of the Lord, about public judgments, witchcrafts, and the punishment of offenders. "You shall not," says the Lord, "allow witches to live." Again, "The fathers shall not be killed for the sons, nor the sons for the fathers, but every one shall be slain for his own offense. Nor does the law conceal the manner of killing, for it gives into the magistrate's hands the use of the sword, stones, and fire. And sometimes it is left to the judge's discretion to punish the offender according to the circumstance of the crime committed, either in body or goods, in loss of limbs or life, in scourging with rods, or selling into bondage." In the 20th chapter of Leviticus, almost all the offenses are reckoned up that are to be punished with immediate death. And in the same way, such punishments are repeated in the 18th and 21st chapters of the same book. There is a precise charge against witches and soothsayers given in the 18th chapter of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 18:10. In the 19th chapter of Leviticus this short precept is given: "You shall not seek out witches, nor observe your dreams. You shall not decline to sorcerers, nor inquire of soothsayers, to be defiled by them." The law expressly gives judgment of death and extreme punishment against them. Leviticus 20:27. In the 22nd chapter of Exodus, this strict sentence is sharply pronounced: "Let no woman live that is a witch." Exodus 22:18. Against heretics, schismatics, apostates, and false prophets, the law gives judgment in the 13th and 18th chapters of Deuteronomy, where it most plainly teaches how such people are to be handled. And like this is the law for stoning blasphemers, which is contained in the 24th chapter of Leviticus, and also the law for contemners and breakers of the Lord's Sabbath, Numbers 15:32-36. There is much to be found in many places of the law, against seditious rebels and secret slanderers. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram were rebels, of whose ends you may read in the 16th chapter of the book of Numbers. If any man maliciously slandered his wife's chastity, and was not able to prove it true, he was fined at a sum of money, or punished with stripes, as seen in the 22nd chapter of Deuteronomy. In the 19th chapter of Leviticus, this precept is given: "You shall not go up and down with tales among your people. Nor shall you hate your brother in your heart, rather, rebuke him and tell him your mind plainly." Also in the 22nd chapter of Exodus it is said, "You shall not rail upon the gods, or judges, nor blaspheme the ruler of your people." Exodus 22:28. Moreover, there are various kinds of murder, of which some are greater or smaller than others. The most detestable murder of all is parricide, when one kills his father or kinsman. Under this, we comprehend the evil treatment or currish handling of parents by their children. Whoever strikes father or mother, or curses them, says the law, let him die the death. Exodus 21:15 and 17. Again, they are bid to kill the rebel who dares stand up to resist the upright decrees and holy ordinances of the elders, Deuteronomy 17. And also, in the 21st chapter of Deuteronomy, we find, if any man has a stubborn, froward, and rebellious son, who will not listen to the voice of his father, and the voice of his mother, and they have chastened him, and he still would not listen to them, then his father and his mother shall take him, and bring him to the elders of that city, and to the gate of that place, and say to the elders of the city, this son of ours is stubborn and disobedient, and will not listen to our voice, he is a rioter and a drunkard. And immediately all the men of that city shall stone him with stones until he dies. And so you shall put evil away from you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Deuteronomy 21:18. Furthermore, murder is either committed willingly, or else unwillingly. There is an example of murder committed unwillingly, in the 19th chapter of Deuteronomy, where the case is put as follows. Two friends go to the wood to hew wood together, and as the one swings his stroke, the head of the axe slips from the handle, and strikes the other so that he dies from it. This deed the Lord neither imputes, nor would he have it imputed to the man, but to himself, and therefore he gives license to the man to flee to the sanctuary. For his mind was that the sanctuary should be a safeguard for those who killed men unwillingly, and not to bladers and cutters, not to those who poison or otherwise kill their neighbors out of a set pretense or purpose. There is much to be seen about this in the 35th chapter of Numbers, and the 4th and 19th chapters of Deuteronomy. The law for murder unwillingly committed also includes the case put forth thus. Two men fight together, and in their fight they strike a woman with child, so that either she falls into labor before her time, or else she shortly dies out of hand. In such a case, the Lord taught what is to be done, in the 21st chapter of Exodus. There the law of like for like is set down, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, etc. In the same place also, another kind of murder is put, which is committed either by your beast such as by your ox that pushes with his horns, or by your wolf, or by your dog that you keep in your house, or else by some instrument or building that is in your possession. Now you either knew, or did not know, the fierceness of your beast, the peril in your instrument, or the rottenness of your building. If you did not know it, you were then excused. But if you knew it, and did not seek a way to prevent the mischief, the Lord charged that you should die for it. But if clemency were granted to you to redeem your life, you should not refuse to pay any sum of money, however great it was. Now willful murder, committed on pretended malice, is utterly unpardonable in the law of God. Such a one, says the law, you shall pull from my altar, that he may be killed. Exodus 21:14. In this case, redemption of life is not permitted, but the blood of the murderer is strictly required. Many cases of this severity, and many other things tending to this end, are to be read in the 35th chapter of Numbers and the 21st chapter of Exodus. In the 21st chapter of Deuteronomy is described the action, partly ceremonial and partly judicial, which was solemnized when any man was found to be slain, and no man knew who was the murderer. There, the manner is also prescribed, how to atone for the murder. By this we may gather how horrible a sin murder is in the sight of God and the Catholic Church. Lastly, the law does not leave the order of war untouched. For it gives precepts concerning the beginning, making, and ending of war, which are to be read in the 20th chapter of Deuteronomy. Moreover, examples of terrible wars are set out in the law, such as that with the Amalekites in the 17th chapter of Exodus, and with the Midianites in the 31st chapter of the book of Numbers. Something also is said there touching the division of spoils gotten in the wars. I know, my brethren, that I have been somewhat tedious in reciting the laws to you. But because the most wise and mighty God does nothing without especial causes, and the evident profit of mankind, I could not allow this part of the law to pass untouched, also considering that I see it so diligently taught by God himself, and that it makes much of the opening and maintaining of the moral law. Our good God, who knows all things, also knows the dullness and overslackness of man's wit, and how it requires things to be forcefully driven many times, for man to do good and issue evil. And therefore, in these judicial laws the Holy Lord has added a holy kind of compulsion to drive men on with. In the moral laws, he frames our manners and teaches us what to do, and what to leave undone. With the ceremonial laws, he helps forward the morals, and under types and figures, he lays before the eyes of our body and mind the mysteries of God in his heavenly kingdom. And lastly, by the judicial laws he compels us to keep the laws, and preserves their integrity. Now all these together tend to this end only, that man may be saved, that he may worship God aright, and live according to the will of the Lord. By the help of God, I have spoken this much up to here concerning his holy laws. Now let us praise the goodness of the Lord, who does not allow his people to lack anything necessary for their commodity, and even today instructs us with these laws to the glory of his name, and the health of our souls.